California is set to impose stricter emission standards next year. Another round of recalls from another manufacturer have been announced, and one fleet is seeing big returns by changing the way they do things and embracing a driver influencer approach. All that, plus we'll get into the November numbers and take a look ahead with our good buddy, Jason Miller. For Randall Reilly, I'm Joshua Miller, and this is the 30-Day Reset. Welcome to another edition of the 30-Day Reset. If you haven't already, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss a new episode of the Reset. We'll be diving into a lot of numbers today, so if you want to go over them a little bit more closely and even dig a little deeper, you can download this month's 30-Day Reset download, which is available, as always, down below. Now let's get to it. First up, Trucking by the Numbers, brought to you by Stratas Strategize. Taking a look back in November, the lead and hire costs were lower in October, but that's to be expected with the holidays approaching. Through the first half of the month, search numbers in November have set pace to be the third highest value on record. But the second half of November drops off because of the Thanksgiving holiday. The overall posting volume has remained low, the lowest since July of 2020. We also saw hire costs fall in October, but that likely had more to do with the calendar itself. We had 5 non-holiday Mondays. And with that in mind, we can expect the hire costs to be at or near their highest points as we make our way through and the final numbers come in for the November and December holidays. For the freight, the total spot volume more than doubled to its highest level since September after a sharp drop during the week of Thanksgiving. Even with those high levels, the overall load volumes were still down 12% year over year and 14% when compared to the 5-year average. When it comes to spot rates, despite notching the highest rate since mid-October, the overall rates were down 10% year over year and 5% when you compare it to the 5-year average. That downward trend continued across all major segments too. Dry-van, refrigerated, and flatbed all saw decreases in load volume and spot rates when compared to the same week last year and the 5-year averages. For a more in-depth look at the data available, including the breakdown of those year-over-year and 5-year average comparisons for each segment, you can find those in this month's 30-Day Reset download, which is, again, available down below. And if you'd like to poke around and pull specific data for yourself, you can do so with Stratas Strategize. If you'd like to learn more about it or take a demo of the platform, you can find a link for that down there too. Now, let's get to this month's headlines. Another month, another recall. This time, it's Volvo. Volvo Trucks North America is recalling certain 2018 to 2024 VN, VNR, and VHD trucks. The issue is that the passenger side bench may be inadequately attached to the floor, and as a result, vehicles fail to comply with the Federal Motor Vehicle Safety Standard numbers 207 and 210. The attachment points may fail, allowing the seat to shift, leading to increased risk of injury in a crash. Owner notification letters are expected to be mailed December 15th. Dealers will replace the weld nut to address the issue free of charge. For more information, you can contact Volvo customer service at the number listed on the screen with the recall number RVXX2312. National Highway Traffic Safety Administration number for the recall is 23V-769. CCJ's 2023 Innovator of the Year, Melton Truck Lines, is shaking things up with its driver influencer program. The idea is to incentivize drivers to post videos to social media platforms such as TikTok and YouTube. Since implementing this strategy, the company has seen better recruitment numbers, especially with younger drivers. From April to June, Melton saw a 56% increase in driver applications from referrals and a 45% increase in driver referral hires compared to the same period from the previous year. Melton's digital marketing manager, Kennedy Alvarez, had this to say about the program. It's scalable, it's flexible, it's beneficial, and it's just a huge branding opportunity. And it could change the way you recruit. It takes a lot of weight off of any internal marketing teams that have been creating content, and it's more effective content. So I would say the number one thing is I think any level of company can implement this regardless of budget. And finally, new regulations in California go into effect next year. The latest California Air Resources Board, or CARB, regulations set to take effect are more stringent than the federal standards set forth by the EPA. The new CARB standards are stricter in regard to nitrogen oxide emissions and fall in line with EPA's upcoming 2027 emission regulations. The latest CARB regs move California further down the path to meeting their goal of making all medium and heavy-duty trucks in the state run emissions-free by 2024. And that'll do it for this month's stories. You can get a more in-depth look at everything we talked about today in the download, and I'll include links to the full stories down there as well. Now for this month's economic update with Jason Miller.
For this monthly update, I want to first focus on our friends across the border in Canada. Being in Michigan, got a very fond spot for the Canucks in our heart up here. And what I wanted to talk about is trucking prices. We obsess over U.S. trucking prices, but that probably raises a question of, do truck transportation prices in Canada show a similar correlation and a similar pattern to what we see in the United States? One of the reasons this is important is that it takes Statistics Canada a little while longer to publish the producer price indices for various parts of trucking than it takes the Bureau of Labor Statistics to do that down here in the States. So that raises a question of, can you essentially use what's going on in the U.S. to impute what's going on in Canada? And the answer is a shocking yes. And so what I've got here is two plots. The plot on the left is showing prices for general freight trucking. So this is a combination of both truckload and less than truckload. You can see almost perfect correlation between the two pricing series, that over time back to 2012, they rise and fall together almost in unison. On the specialized side, so this is going to be your long distance haulers of chemicals and flatbed and refrigerated, we see the same pattern again of almost perfect correlation in terms of how those prices are moving. And so what that's telling me is that you can essentially use those prices from the U.S. and their movements to anticipate what's going to be happening north of the border. They should also serve as a great sort of, validity check that there's no way the Bureau of Labor Statistics and Statistics Canada are capturing price movements that are this aligned without them essentially measuring the same underlying thing. In this case, what is it costing shippers to have truckload transportation? Now, sticking with this sort of cross-border theme, there's probably no more important industry for the U.S. and Canada in terms of how we're linked than the auto sector and production of motor vehicles and parts. And we are now on the other side of the most recent UAW strike, so it's time to really get a sense of how severe was the disruption. And the answer to that is actually worse than what we had in 2019 when we had a strike across all of GM. So in October of 2023, we saw a 10% decline in motor vehicle and parts production here in the United States. That compared to about a 6.5% decline from October of 2019 from the prior month. Now, in fairness, we had seen a little bit of a decline in September of 2019, whereas September of 2023 was kind of flat from August. But in terms of overall magnitude of drop, if you take a look there, this auto strike takes the cake as the bigger impact on production. And what's hard to believe was that at its worst, only 8 assembly plants were actually affected. Granted, there were 8 of the largest facilities. So now that the strike's over and we should see production ramping back up, that should be some additional cross-border freight volume and just freight volume in general. And sticking with that auto theme, there's been a lot of headlines recently about the shifting of the auto sector in the United States towards the South. And yes, while there certainly is good evidence that a lot of the capital investment right now that's taking place for the automakers is heavily oriented towards Tennessee and Georgia and the Carolinas, one thing just to be very clear on is the Great Lakes still dominates motor vehicle and parts production in the U.S., with the great state of Michigan, where I'm at, coming in at number 1, Indiana at number 2, and then Ohio at number 3. So just to be very clear is that even though we have seen a shift in the center of gravity further south than it used to be, certainly compared to, let's say, 40 years ago, the Great Lakes are still king of the auto production. And none of the new investments are going to fundamentally alter the still center of gravity that we have here in the Great Lakes. And so with that, that wraps up this December production, and wish everybody a wonderful Christmas holiday, and we'll be back in 2024.
Thanks for that update, Jason. It's great info as always. Those charts and numbers Jason referred to are available for you again, one more time, in this month's download. There's also a consult and Strategize link down there as well. And that'll just about do it for this edition of the 30-Day Reset. Thanks again for joining us. This is the final edition of the Reset for 2023, but we will be back in January to kick off 2024. From all of us here at Randall Reilly, we hope you have a very Merry Christmas and a safe and happy New Year. See you next time. Hey guys, thanks for watching this episode. We hope you liked it. If you did, don't forget to subscribe, and you can check out more content on our channel like this one right here, or maybe this playlist up there. Check it out. Okay, bye.